Some people don't fear being alone, they fear being known. The idea of someone seeing their deepest flaws, their quiet insecurities, their unhealed wounds, feels unbearable. So, they build walls, and call them boundaries, safety, or just how I am. The truth is, they crave connection like everyone else. But every time someone gets close, an invisible alarm goes off inside, warning them that love equals pain, intimacy equals loss. And before they realize it, they've already started pulling away. These people learned early on that closeness often comes with consequences. Maybe they were abandoned when they needed someone most. Maybe love was conditional, withdrawn the moment they stopped being perfect. So, distance became their only form of control. The psychology of pushing people away is not rooted in arrogance, it's rooted in fear. Fear that history will repeat itself. Fear that if they let someone in, they'll lose themselves again in the chaos of caring too much. They've mastered the art of emotional camouflage. They smile when they're breaking, joke when they're lonely, and convince others they prefer solitude. But under that quiet surface lies a heart that beats too loudly for its own peace. To them, detachment feels safer than vulnerability. Because vulnerability once felt like standing unarmed in a battlefield, and they remember how that ended. Every time they feel a spark of closeness, they unconsciously sabotage it. They might start arguments, withdraw emotionally, or act like they don't care. It's not because they don't feel, it's because they feel too much. Psychologically, this behavior is known as avoidant attachment, a defense mechanism formed in childhood when affection and safety were unpredictable. Their mind learned that the only way to avoid pain was to avoid people. Over time, this pattern becomes identity. They stop realizing they're protecting themselves. They start believing they're simply different, independent, or cold. But independence built on fear isn't strength, it's survival. And survival is exhausting. Because deep down they know they want someone to stay. They just don't believe anyone ever will. People who push others away often attract those who chase. The ones who believe they can fix them, heal them, or love them enough to break through the walls. But the harder someone tries, the faster they retreat, terrified of being cornered by affection. This cycle feeds their guilt. They hate hurting people. Yet they can't stop themselves from doing it. Because letting someone close feels like losing control, and control is their last illusion of safety. Loneliness becomes both punishment and comfort. It hurts, but it's predictable. And predictability feels safer than love that can leave. When you ask them why they keep running from good people, they'll say, "I don't know." But deep down, they do. It's just that explaining it would mean reopening the very wounds they've spent years pretending don't exist. Many of them grew up having to be emotionally self-sufficient. When comfort wasn't available, they learned to comfort themselves. When no one listened, they learned silence. That silence became their home. Now, when someone offers them care, their instinct isn't to accept it, it's to question it. Why are you being nice to me? What do you really want? Trust feels foreign, like a language they never learned. To care deeply requires surrender. And surrender feels like death to someone who's survived by staying guarded. Their relationships often end not because love is absent, but because fear is present. Fear of needing someone. Fear of losing them. Fear of being enough one day and too much the next, psychologically. This fear stems from emotional inconsistency in early relationships, when love was sometimes tender, sometimes cruel. The child learned not to rely on anyone fully, because reliance led to pain. So they grew up wearing armor that never comes off. Even when they meet someone safe, their mind whispers, "Don't trust this. It won't last." When they start feeling close to someone, they overanalyze every word, every pause, every change in tone, looking for proof that it's about to end. It's not intuition. It's trauma rehearsing itself. They often mistake calm love for boredom, and kindness for pity. Because chaos once felt like love, and peace feels like the absence of it. Deep inside they want to be understood. But the moment someone gets too close to understanding them, they panic. Because to be understood means to be seen, and to be seen means to be vulnerable. Vulnerability feels like standing in front of someone naked, not physically, but emotionally, stripped of defenses. And in their mind, that's the most dangerous place to be. People who push others away are not broken. They're cautious. They've spent too long in emotional storms to ever trust clear skies again. Their guilt is silent but heavy. They lie awake wondering why they keep ruining things that could make them happy. And yet, even with that awareness, they can't stop, because this isn't a choice made in the present. It's a reflex born in the past. You can't reason your way out of survival instincts. You can only slowly unlearn them. Healing for them begins when they realize that connection doesn't always lead to pain. That love doesn't have to mean losing control. Sometimes it means finally being safe enough to let go. The walls they built were never meant to last forever. They were meant to protect a version of them that no longer needs protecting. But tearing them down isn't easy. It feels like betrayal of the self that once depended on them. Every relationship becomes a quiet battle between desire and defense. Between wanting to be loved and fearing what love might demand in return. They might act distant, but inside, they're constantly analyzing, feeling, remembering. Their silence is not emptiness, it's self-preservation. They may crave solitude, but solitude doesn't heal what isolation created. It only hides it. Over time, this isolation creates emotional numbness. They start to forget what genuine warmth feels like, until someone patient enough brings light into their shadows. That patience is rare, but transformative. Because consistent love is the only thing strong enough to rewire a mind built on fear. Still, even when loved, they'll test it. They'll pull away, stay quiet, or disappear, just to see if you'll follow. It's not manipulation. It's verification. They need proof that love won't leave when things get uncomfortable. Proof that safety doesn't vanish when they stop pretending to be okay. But the irony is that the only way to feel that safety is to stop testing it. And that's the hardest thing for them to do. Their healing requires a new kind of bravery. The courage to stay, to trust, to believe that not everyone who comes close intends to hurt them. They must learn that love can coexist with fear. And that opening up doesn't erase strength. It redefines it. Over time, they realize that pushing people away was never about others. It was about protecting the part of themselves that didn't believe they were worthy of being kept. True healing begins when they finally believe they deserve connection, not because they've earned it, but because they're human. Slowly the walls start to crack. A little more light enters. Conversations become easier. Vulnerability feels less like exposure, more like release. They start to see that being seen doesn't have to be painful. It can be liberating. When they finally allow someone to stay, they discover something unexpected. Safety doesn't come from walls. It comes from trust. Trust that the world won't always repeat the past. Trust that love can exist without destruction. Trust that not every goodbye means abandonment. The person who once ran from closeness begins to walk toward it carefully, quietly, but with intent. That's healing. Not loud or sudden, but real, and maybe, one day, they'll realize that pushing people away was never protection. It was postponement. A delay between who they were and who they're becoming. Because even the most guarded hearts eventually crave warmth. And when they finally stop running, they find that love didn't disappear. It just waited for them to be ready. So if you've ever loved someone who pushes you away, or if you are that person, know this. You are not hard to love. You are just learning how to believe it. Deep down, the person who pushes everyone away doesn't truly want solitude. They crave connection, but the fear of being misunderstood, judged, or left again feels unbearable. So, they build walls instead of bridges, not realizing how much those walls cost them in quiet loneliness. They become masters at masking pain with sarcasm, distance, or emotional numbness. It's not arrogance, it's self-defense. Because the moment they let someone close, the fear returns. What if they see who I really am, and leave too? Every potential bond becomes a battlefield between desire and fear. One part of them whispers, "Let them in, maybe this time will be different," while another part screams, "Don't." It always ends in pain. The result? A life spent in emotional limbo, half open, half closed. Over time, they start to confuse peace with isolation. Quiet rooms feel safe because no one can hurt them there. But after a while, even silence starts to ache. The very safety they fought for begins to feel like a cage. They replay old memories late at night, not because they enjoy the pain, but because the loneliness has a familiar rhythm. It reminds them they're still capable of feeling something, even if it hurts. When people try to care, they push harder. They'll say things like, "I'm fine," or "You don't need to worry." But inside, they're screaming for someone to stay. To not give up, even when they make it hard to stay. The truth is, they don't need fixing. They need understanding. The kind that doesn't demand explanations. They need someone who sees their distance as a symptom, not a rejection. Someone who stays calm in the silence. Healing begins when they stop seeing vulnerability as weakness. When they realize that letting someone in doesn't mean losing control. It means trusting life enough to risk pain for the chance of connection. Slowly, they start to let their walls crack. A conversation here. A small confession there. It's never dramatic, never obvious. Just quiet, human moments of honesty that remind them, maybe not everyone leaves. And one day, they realize the truth. The people who truly care never needed perfection. They just needed presence. And the moment they allow themselves to be seen, raw, imperfect, human love finally has room to stay. People who push everyone away often grew up believing that love is conditional. That affection comes only when they perform, please, or stay quiet. So as adults, they retreat at the first sign of disapproval. Mistaking self-protection for strength, they overanalyze every message, every tone, every silence. When someone takes too long to reply, their mind fills with stories. They're bored of me. They've realized I'm not worth it. These stories hurt, yet they feel safer than hoping. Inside, there's a deep fatigue, not physical, but emotional. It comes from constantly pretending not to care, from fighting their own heart every time it reaches out. That exhaustion is why they seem cold. It's not detachment, it's survival. They may crave closeness, but lack the emotional language to express it. So instead of saying, "I miss you," they disappear. Instead of asking for help, they withdraw. Every goodbye they cause is just another attempt to avoid the pain of being left. Sometimes they test people, not out of malice, but fear. They push, they create distance, just to see if someone will fight to stay. And when that person finally walks away, they whisper to themselves, "See, I was right." Their hearts are full of ghosts, of people they didn't know how to keep, of moments they didn't know how to hold. They carry those memories like invisible bruises, always sore, always reminding them why it's easier not to try again. But every wall they build hides a small, trembling hope. Maybe one day, someone will see past this armor. It's a hope they'd never admit, but it's there, flickering like a candle in the dark, refusing to die out. True healing begins the moment they realize that safety and love can coexist. That being open doesn't mean being weak. That some people won't use their vulnerability against them. Some will hold it gently. It takes time, years, sometimes for them to relearn trust. But slowly, as they meet people who don't flinch at their silence, who don't leave when they shut down, they start to believe again in human connection. And when that belief returns, even quietly, something shifts. They no longer need to push people away to feel safe. They begin to understand that love isn't a threat. It's the very thing that makes survival finally feel like living. Deep down, people who push others away often long for a kind of love that feels calm. One that doesn't demand them to explain their fears or hide their scars. They've known chaos for so long that peace feels foreign, almost suspicious. They often confuse solitude with strength, telling themselves, "I'm better alone." But late at night, that lie unravels. The silence becomes heavy, and they find themselves missing the very warmth they once rejected. Their mind replays old conversations, words they wish they had said differently, moments when someone reached out and they turned away. Regret lingers like smoke after a fire, reminding them how their own walls became their prison. Healing doesn't happen all at once. It begins with small moments, letting someone in for a conversation, accepting help, or allowing themselves to be seen on bad days. Each step feels terrifying, yet strangely freeing. Over time, they learn that love isn't supposed to hurt or threaten their safety. Real love doesn't demand perfection. It waits, it listens, and it stays. And when they finally let that kind of love in, they realize they were never too much. They were just too afraid.